Hi guys, my name's Nathan and today I'm going to be looking at and comparing FIFA 16 and PES 2016. Now before we start I should mention that all of these impressions are taken from the PS4 versions of the game, and while the game should be fairly similar across current gen systems, your mileage may vary. So let's start with a graphical comparison. And as we can see from the standard camera angle of both games, they both have their own fairly distinctive style, but they both look pretty good and I have to say fairly realistic when watching gameplay from a distance. Moving in to look at a player comparison, we can see my beautiful assistant, Luis Suarez. Now I picked Suarez because he is well known, has a distinctive look, and as far as I know he has never been directly linked with either PES or FIFA, and therefore neither should have an advantage in capturing his likeness. So when we look at him, we can see the graphics of both games hold up fairly well. However, we can tell that it is definitely not the real person, as the hair quality along with a few other minor imperfections give the game away. In my opinion as well, we can see that Pro Evo has attempted a more realistic appearance for players, especially with their skin graphics, while FIFA sticks to its usual look. On the whole though, you can tell that it is Luis Suarez, and it is a fairly good representation of the look of the player by both titles. One last little thing I want to mention about the graphics is that both games have absolutely beautiful grass. And while this may not affect your experience 99% of the time, I feel it's a really nice bit of detail that both games have added. Overall, I feel that both games are graphical successes, and while some of the more generic player models look a bit dodgy, if you play with the bigger teams it can be truly immersive thanks to the level of detail that both games have added. Moving on, and I want to talk about potentially the most important aspect of either game, and that's the gameplay. FIFA maintains its faster gameplay, although it is now more feasible to play through the midfield. New mechanics in FIFA include the ability to quickly get up after a slide tackle, no-touch dribbling, which can be great for creating half a yard of space to get a shot away, and the bullet pass, which allows players to hammer the ball towards teammates and rely on the receiver's first touch being up to the task. These may seem like minor additions, but it really changes the way the game plays, and in my opinion it's for the better. One small issue I have experienced though is that the AI slightly overuses the bullet pass mechanic, and the first touches of players seem to be a bit more reliable than they should be. One final change I want to mention about the FIFA gameplay is that fouls now happen a lot more often, as referees seem stricter and AI players are more willing to dive in, and while this does break up the play, I personally like the change. Now to the PES gameplay, and this is generally much slower and more methodical than the gameplay of FIFA, allowing for more tactical matches. Everything feels more physical than in previous iterations of PES, and it can be incredibly satisfying to score beautifully worked goals. However, there are definitely some complaints that I'd have. Defenders can go wandering without any input from the player, and on my review of PES, I've had people saying that keepers don't catch anything, and when I went back, I did notice that keepers drop shots very easily, although that could just be confirmation bias. Chipping shots is incredibly overpowered too in my opinion, as the AI always seems able to perfectly gauge the right height to beat the keeper, but still keep the ball under the bar, and it's not much more difficult to pull off yourself. On the whole, the gameplay of both titles is surprisingly different from one another, given the fact they're both football games, with FIFA being about a lot faster end-to-end action than PES, which prefers carefully thought out moves. Overall though, both games pull off their individual styles well. The next thing I want to talk about is game modes, and both games have a wide array of modes, with FIFA even increasing their range with the new FUT Draft mode, which I have to admit for me was a bit of a throwaway. It basically seems like Ultimate Team without any of the team building, which is my favourite part. However, I can see how a lot of people may enjoy this mode, as it quickly allows you to play with some of the best players in the world. Continuing on the FIFA side of things, many minor changes have been made to the career mode, with possibly the most notable being training, which allows you to choose 5 players and train them in specific attributes. While this is an interesting addition, after a couple of sessions you'll most likely find yourself simulating these sessions. Another widely publicised new feature is the pre-season tournaments, which allow you to make a bit of cash and get a few games under your belt before the season starts. This may seem like a minor addition, but it is still a nice little feature to have in there, although it does tend to add a lot of matches to the pre-season, and I often find myself simming quite a few of them. The transfer system, which had apparently been reworked, still has its issues, with players ending up in very unlikely places. But on the whole, this isn't a huge issue, as it doesn't affect your ability to make your own transfers. Other than that, FIFA offers its usual array of online and offline game modes to keep you going for a long time. Moving on to the PES game modes, and we have to start with Master League, which has gone through some changes, including a complete UI overhaul, but the core of the mode remains the same, and it remains one of my favourite modes in all games, as it allows the player to start off with a mediocre squad and rise to be the best in the world. Online modes also remain, with a nice points-based balancing system in the Divisions mode, which offers an incentive to play with teams other than just Madrid and Barcelona. And the Become a Legend mode I personally feel has a better progression system than FIFA, as it focuses on good performances rather than completing specific tasks. If you're looking for longevity, I would say that FIFA is probably the better game to go for, but Master League possibly even outweighs that, with it being so fantastic and so much fun to take a team from the very bottom to the very top. The final set of things I want to talk about are just little things from both games that I feel deserve a mention. Firstly, the UI, which has been significantly improved in Pro Evo, but I still feel it needs some work, and FIFA offers an easier, more pleasant user experience on the whole. Next, licenses, which may not bother some of you, but personally the lack of licenses of the Premier League in particular that PES offers takes away from the game quite a bit. However, I have been informed by a lot of people that modding the game to add these licenses is incredibly easy on PS4 and PC. But having spent £50 to £60 on a game, I personally find it a little bit irritating that I still have to do some work to get that game up to standard. On the other hand though, PES does have the licenses for the Champions League and Europa League, which makes European matches feel incredible, and I rarely skip the intro sequence during these matches because the look and feel of it is just great. Finally, I feel that stadiums deserve a mention, and I suppose this ties into licenses, but FIFA just has so many more stadiums than PES, particularly in the Premier League, and I often find it frustrating to play game after game in the Konami Stadium in Pro Evo. So overall, I think both games are very good offerings for their franchises, and both offer a different experience, so which one you buy depends on what you want from your football game. Now I can't tell you which is best because it is a very subjective thing, but I can say that I personally have played more of FIFA than PES since it came out, but that doesn't necessarily make it a better game. In the end, both games are very good at what they do, and I believe that if you pick up the game that suits the style you want, you won't be disappointed with either of these titles. So that about wraps it up for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd be very grateful of a like underneath, and maybe even subscribe to the channel for more game comparisons and reviews in the near future. I think I'm going to do some Uncharted Nathan Drake collection stuff very soon, so if that sounds interesting, then get subscribed. But anyway guys, thanks for watching. I've been Nathan, and I'll see you next time.